Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Dede Mijar and I'm from class 2D with the number student 19224001. And today I'd like to deliver my presentation of research journal with the title I Start Learning English Through Speaking, Social Agency Demand and Inter-School Readiness for Indonesian Young English Learners. Alright, I'd like to begin with the background of this study. In the present century, the world rapidly changing by being narrow, accessible, shareable, and familiar to all people, as English is used as common language. Apart from some variations in habits, cultures, traditions, religions, and other contexts. In the Indonesian context, the current status of English as a foreign language is focused on its common usage areas such as in politics, democracy, science, technology, commerce, banks, and also in education. This status is commonly referred as social agency of English, which drives parents to provide better English proficiency to their children. However, this interest in English for young learners do not seem to receive paper by government justifications due to lack of school readiness and fear that teaching English in a higher level could threaten young learners' acquisition of Bahasa Indonesia as their national language. Finally, English subject for primary school is excluded from the current national curriculum 2013. It leaves room for teachers' confusion and creativity, leading to various practice at different schools clusters depending on parental demands and school readiness. As additional, high demand from social agency for honor education requests to develop oral proficiency. In Indonesia, to meet the high request for English, teachers with low competence and also in a relevant background sometimes are recruited to be an English teachers in elementary schools. As a result, they falsely believing that teaching English for this age could simple and less demanding. So they just focus on literacy skills such as writing, grammar, and also reading, then oral proficiency in these levels. Within these conditions, some schools have more readiness to implement this subject while others may have no. So due to a variety of teachers' competencies and school readiness, the practice of English to young learners saw a range of interesting practice to be identified. With that as the background, this study examines the social agency demand and inter-school readiness for teaching English to young learners in various clusters of primary schools in Indonesia. In particular, we address the following research questions. The first, why do most of social agencies demand want their children to develop their oral proficiency? And the second is, what are the best solutions to accommodate social agencies demand? Alright, now we move to the method of this study. To achieve the objective of research, researchers utilize the qualitative method through observations, interviews, and document analysis. The study involved different schools from 3 schools in Banten province and 3 schools in West Java province. And there 6 English teachers as population. In detail, students of years 4 until 6 in the local schools in 2 provinces consist of 35 students. The national cluster have 25 students and the international cluster have 15 students as a sample. Data for this study were generated from classroom observations, interviews, and document analysis conducted between July until November 2017. Observations were conducted in 6 participating classrooms as 60 until 70 minutes for each observation, conducted to identify detailed classroom interactions, teaching methods, and process of English language teaching and learning. As additional, for the convenience of participants in expressing their voice, interviews were conducted in Bahasa Indonesia, but transcripts were then translated into English. Alright, now for data analysis. To analyze data, the collected data from the 3 instruments were presented based on the topic of the study. The data from the classroom observation covering class interaction between the teachers and students with students, while transcribed and analyzed by referring to the theory of classroom discourse analysis proposed by Newton 2002. The framework of analysis consists of 2 major categories, namely teacher's talk and student talks. Teacher's talks cover attending, connection, monitoring, and directions, while students' talk includes response, self-initiate, and queries, based on Newton 2002. Alright, and now we move to the conclusion. Based on the aforementioned discussion, this study comes with some conclusion. First, within its limit status, the practice of English teaching to young learners varies from one cluster to other clusters. International and national schools tend to have better practice of English teaching by introducing more fun and interactive while they're practicing teaching English in the school. Meanwhile, most of the local schools still heavily emphasis reading and writing activities with very minimum emphasis on oral proficiency. The second, teacher at local school cluster, the largest number in the country, have the poorest competence, thus need a special attention. Instead of improving learners' English competence, misleading teaching practice by this mismatch, teachers might even jeopardize the acquisition of English among young Indonesian learners. As that we talk with background and then method and conclusion, this research is hand in hand with the previous studies. The first, this hand in hand with Jane 2016 in his studies have shown most English teachers in Indonesia at local school clusters are of low competence. The second, by Ellington and Johnston 2002, in their research in previous studies, they do not, despite a high commitment to teaching, they do not become relevant educational background in English education, low English proficiency, low competence in material development. And now, from Muhtar et al. 2015 and Zhang 2009, it implied that Indonesian teachers might believe that developing student speaking skills is complicated to develop, so that they focus more on reading and writing activities. And the last is research is also hand in hand with Basal et al. 2016 and Suyanto 2004. There supports the fact that the majority of widely circulated English learning materials in Indonesia do not match the characteristics of primary school students, including poor illustrations and organizations. Alright, And the last as addition, I'd like to answer the question from my lecturer, and the question is, the journal said that the practice of teaching to young learning emphasis more on the literacy skills, writing, reading, and grammar, and it is quite contradictory. In your opinion, what should the teaching to young learners be like, and what should we emphasis more? Okay, I think as mentioned in this study, in Indonesia, especially in elementary schools, the teaching of students in the class more emphasis in literacy skills, reading, writing, and grammar. It's quite in contradictory because social agency demand and parental demand want their children to develop their oral proficiency, because they believe oral proficiency is a strong indicator of English language competence, and it's necessary for their children's future education. As you know that in Indonesia, we have three clusters of elementary schools. The first is local clusters with the limited standards and facilities below national, and second is national clusters with the facilities meeting the requirement by government, and the last is international cluster with the national standard and also international curriculum. But both are them, and just one cluster in international cluster who emphasis more in oral proficiency. So the main problem in Indonesia is the local cluster is become the majority the English education department in Indonesia. I realized that in Indonesia it's come from the teachers. Yeah, as we know that sometimes in local clusters they recruit the teachers in a low competence and also in irrelevant background, so they just follow the principle and just apply what can they do. But is quite contradictory because social demand and also parental demand want their children to develop their oral proficiency. And what should we emphasize more? I think we should emphasize more in oral proficiency. We may apply in international clusters, such as in teaching they use dialogue and also communicative, fun, interactive, using games, so they can help the students to improve their English from the earlier. But I think as to be noted, it is quite hard because this is the main problem is come from our teachers' competence. So our teacher competence is need to be improved first, both are their capability or their quality. So I think that's enough for me. Thank you. I'm sorry if there's any mistakes from my explanations. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.